Because first of all, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Halcyon Show. My name's Lorne, host of the show. How you doing? Thank you for joining me, because today we welcome a man who chose to name himself after the legendary Kray twins, but I, for one, think this name does him a disservice, because he's at least 30% more gangster and at least 15% more cockney. He's a battler with a rising reputation within the scene as a performer of the people. 2023 promised and delivered much, but 2024 already has much more in store, as he's already preparing for a candidate on the Rushmore of UK battle rap in Shea. Is he up to the challenge, and is he ready to carve his name on the pantheon of the top tier in UK battle rap today? Let's find out. Please welcome Mr. Sean Kray joins us.
Nice to be here.
I suppose that's where we've got to start, really, isn't it? You've got a battle with I don't know if you've ever heard of him. It's kind of a small deal. Oh, fucking Shea coming up. How do you feel about that, man?
Very excited. Like, absolutely. The fact that it's in Liverpool and all is it's unreal. And I can't believe it's come around so quickly, because when I first started out, people were always saying you need to battle Osh, or they'd say to me, who would you like to battle ideally? And I always said Osh. And it's come round pretty quick. So yeah, it's yeah. And I was on the last Liverpool card. Amazing crowd, you know, it was so responsive, fun, ideal little venue sort of thing, a decent sized venue, and I just can't wait for it. It's yeah, I'm definitely not going to disappoint in this one.
You're going into the lion's den, though, brother. Like I say, I know that you both have probably got two garnered reputations as being battlers of the people. Like, if anyone's going to rock a room, it's O'Shea. And if anyone's going to rock a room in terms of just bringing them in with the hard stuff and then letting them know, it's just for jokes, it's you. I remember you were my second ever the second only ever battle I saw live. And I remember that room being a case of it feeling a little uneasy at first, because you don't know where he's going with some of this stuff, and then he hits the bar and it's just, oh, okay, he's just tapping him, he's just going for him. So going to Liverpool, though, and trying to go blow for blow with a fan favourite who knows how to rock a room must be a challenge. But at the same time, man, these are the kinds of opportunities that can make people look at you different and go, tell you what, that Sean Kray's got something. How do you feel about that, man?
It doesn't worry me in the slightest, because people who know me know that when I'm battling, I'm not in character. I am who I am. So I've been Sean Kray for 37 years. So it's, you know, I'm used to, you know, I've been to Goodison Park as an away fan numerous times. I've seen win, loses, and draws. I've been chucked out of the stadium once. It's just a banter. It's like, you know, and I've always had banter with Liverpool fans, and I know obviously he's not Liverpool, but it's just like going up into the Lions' Den of going up to Liverpool and saying what I'm going to say. It don't worry me at all. I can't wait for it. It's my kind of thing. So yeah, it's certainly not going to overwhelm me at all.
How do you look at it as an opportunity? Obviously, 2023 was a big year for a lot of different people, but you in particular, because you were on the Plug 3, which I would argue was one of the biggest events of the year. You were on Undisclosed 10, which again, I would argue was one of the biggest events of the year. A lot of people got to see you firsthand, up close, during this, I think we're past revival when it comes to UK battle rap at this stage. I think we're really into its stride in terms of it hitting the heights that it wants to hit going forward. But like, how does it feel like this is how you're effectively going to set the bar for 2024, and then you're going to hopefully extend from beyond there? Like, that must be not only exciting, but it must be invigorating, given the fact that you're a fan. That at least you started off as a fan, so being on the other side of it and you're looking across the way and it's fucking O'Shea, that must be insane, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I know Osh so well. It's the reason that I ever attended the first event I ever went to is because of O'Shea, funnily enough. So it's but yeah, it's like, as I say, I'm not nervous, I'm not worried. It's literally as a case. As I say, I was on those two big cards. I was on Institution as well. That was about 300 people. The thing that gives me hope is that when I'm performing in front of these big crowds, I get approached by so many people at the event who are just like, do you know what? I came with my friend who's a big fan of whichever battler it is. But you know what? I loved you. Like, so I'm like something a bit different to what most of the people are doing, especially on prep. On Don't Flop, there's a few more that are a bit more similar to me. But it's like, because I know that I appeal to these casual fans, if you want to call them that. That's why I know that Osh is a big opportunity for me, because I know if I go in a room where there's a load of people there, I've got them there and they're liking it. He's going to bring eyes online that I've not been in front of yet because they're there for him. Um, it's that's where the opportunity is, because I feel like on paper his fans should be a fan of what I do as well. So it's a good opportunity. This is one that I can't afford to blow. I need to be the best version of myself that I've been in this one in front of those people. And I think it's going to go off. I think that lots of the O'Shea fans don't really watch anymore. They'll tune in for him. And when they watch him now and they see him against who he's battled more recently, I don't think they're a fan of what the opponents are doing, because it's the reason why they've tuned out. I feel like they're going to be more of a fan of this one. So yeah, it's just pure excitement, to be honest. It's nothing else. I just can't wait.
I want to take you back then, because that's current and future. But I want to take you back for a second, because again, I feel it's pertinent to touch, because you were probably one of the first experiences I've ever had with battle rap in real life, when you have the opportunity to really feel the energy of a room, the quiet as things simmer, as the crowd comes into a venue and they're settling and they're mingling, okay? And then the first battle's called, and then the room kind of clears after the battle, and then it comes back in, right? Then you're there, you're at the focal point, you're in the room, and suddenly it's on you, okay? From that point to when you first got the bug of battle rap, when did that start? Like, what was the genesis, or what was the moment? You mentioned O'Shea there, but like, what was the moment that you kind of saw it or was exposed to it, and you went, "What's this? This is interesting. What's this?"
No, exactly. Yeah, I know exactly what it was. It would have been 2005, and I was sat in my bedroom and I was watching Channel U, as like my TV used to just be on Channel U all day, right?
Shouts to
And
Channel U. I haven't heard that reference in years, son.
yeah, and
Jeez.
Channel U, and up came Jump Off.tv, Mike Assassin versus Stig of the Dump, and it was on Oxford Street, just in the entrance of Selfridges, and yeah, it was freestyle, but they were two of the absolute best, as I went on to learn. And it was Mike Assassin was like, "We're outside Selfridges. He looks like he sells fridges," and things of that ilk. And I just sat there and I was just like, "Do you know what? I love this," because I've always been someone that's all about the banter. When I'd be on the school bus on the top deck going to school, we'd just be ripping the hell out of each other, and it was kind of anything goes, and it was just the wittiest would survive, or and that was just always my kind of humour. So when I saw Mike Assassin, he was from southeast London, Lewisham, it was that same kind of mum joke kind of humour. And I was like, do you know what? I love this. And and it flashed up, jumpoff.tv, typed it in, and there was maybe 8 or 9 battles on there at the time. You had to download them, and so you would download the battles. This is pre-YouTube, so you download the battles, and I just chain watched them. My brother watching them as well, and it was just. And then Mike Assassin went out to New York, and he battled Iron Solomon. yeah, he battled. I'm just trying. I know all the names of them, but I don't know if you'd know the rest of them. But like he battled maybe 6 or 7 people while he was out there, completely freestyle. Just and that was just something that wasn't anything that was on TV or anything. It was like there wasn't any such thing as YouTube or anything. So seeing someone who didn't resemble me, but he resembled like my group of friends and stuff, just going over to New York and just stepping up and battling Iron Solomon on the just outside the subway and so battling someone outside Yankee Stadium and just being like, yeah, your mum did this, your mum did that, and like the Americans despised Mike Assassin because the thing was in 2000 and it was the turn of 2000. I think it was December 2005, or possibly the start of '06 when he did this New York tour. They'd already started to sort of transition to, especially on the East Coast, they'd started to transition to bringing writtens. So when he battled Iron Solomon came with 3 written verses, but it was in the time frame when you would write, but you would try and dress it up like it was freestyle. So it wasn't like, yeah, it wasn't a case of, it was intricate. So that's what it was. And he sort of went over there and completely went off at the top of the head. And that's why they say, "Oh, Mike Assassin, I'm about to tell these guys, I'm about to," because it's a difficult thing to do. And yeah, so it went from that, and then I was on the Jump Off forum at the time. Was on it, Kruger was on it, O'Shea was on it, Ark was on it, and this was, as I say, 2005, 2006, just posting about all the battles and whatever. And Ark went into WRCs in 2000. Went in 2007. Ark was in it in 2006 and 2007, and then basically Jump Off ended up losing out on a lot of its sponsorships because the tapes got stolen in the finals. The company basically went bust, and we were all sat on this forum like, oh my god! I was a reader of the forum rather than a participator, and they were like, God, we're all addicted to this thing, and it's just died. And in the WRCs was Organic was a battler that was in it. So he went away and made King of the Dot. Mad Ills was a battler that was in it. He went and was one of the people that went and made Grind Time. Was in it. Kruger was more or less in it. And they went away and made Don't Flop. And they were all came from this thing that died. And then it spawned these leagues. And then, yeah, so I sort of got to know O'Shea. He was on this forum, but he started to battle on Don't Flop straight away. And I never considered going, but my brother went to uni up at Liverpool, and his local pub was a pub called the Brook House on Smithdown Road, which was O'Shea's local, just by pure chance. And he was in there and saw O'Shea and said, "Oh, you're O'Shea," and like this was when no one knew O'Shea for battling because it was so small. And O'Shea was just like, "Oh, do you know what? I'm battling Kruger in Birmingham next week." It happened to be my birthday. I think it was my 21st, and we were like, "Oh, we're going to have a night at Birmingham." Sunday event, went there, and that was her versus Kruger. That was the first one I ever went to. So never looked back.
That is that's an interesting. So your relationship with battle rap seems to have stemmed from sort of a little bit of first hand and a little bit of third hand and sort of an amalgamation of a couple of different eras. How do you look back on that now, considering that not only are you a part of the scene, you're an active participant in it, but one of the things that I've noticed about your persona, if you want to call it that, is that you're an ardent supporter of battle rap. You're a real champion of it in the sense of you are constantly promoting it, you are constantly involved in the chats, and you are constantly pushing other people, you're constantly speaking up other people, and you've been reasonably active. So like, talk to me about that dichotomy again. Like, how does it must be a little surreal, even though again you're established now, man. You're someone that they can put on a flyer and it will sell. How does it feel like looking back on your participation in the genre as a fan to now that you're again? This is you're going to be battling O'Shea, and that's just the start of your year. How does it feel like that timeline, like young you looking at you now? Like, how do you look at it through that prism, maybe?
It is strange if I look at it that way. And sometimes I do kind of think, oh, what would me of that those days think if I saw it? But I don't think I'd have been that surprised because I was always asked to battle. Like, used to ask me to battle. O'Shea, when he used to do odd events in Liverpool, and he would always be like, you should battle, like, you know what you're doing. I used to sort of write bars and give to people at times. And when I say bars, it was more the same style that I do now. So it'd be observational jokes and stuff. And I'm quite good at rhyming. So I would sort of say to someone, oh, how's your prep going for such and such? And they'd be like, oh, I've got 2.5 rounds, and it's like the battle's on Saturday. And I'll be like, look, bish, bash, bosh. And I always kind of, and it obviously wasn't a case of every single thing that I ever gave them was fire, but there was definitely a good handful of them that went off in the room that gave me the confidence of like, I could actually do that. But me, when I was in my early 20s, I've always said was a completely different person to what I am now. I was less mature. I was more self-conscious and a bit of a knob, if I'm honest. Like, looking back, and it was like I'd sort of imagined that me standing in there and having things said to me, I would have probably reacted in a way that I'd look back on now and been quite embarrassed. So I'm lucky that I never did step in them because I know I wasn't ready. By the time I did, although it was kind of an accidental situation, the way that I ended up falling into it, I'm way more suited to do it now than I ever was then because I know who I am now. I know what I am. It's and I'm content. So it's like, if someone says this or that, unless they said anything that was ridiculously that would be out of line to anybody that watched it. As long as it's something that's fine, it's fine with me. I'm not sensitive in the slightest, so it's far better for me to do it now. But yeah, people like Rowan says it to me all the time. He's like, if you came into 2012, 2013 when there was the boom, you would have been massive. And I'm like, it's all ifs and buts because I wouldn't have come in as I am now. I would have been a completely different animal, and it might not have done. So I'm never going to dwell on that. But yeah, certainly, I do think it is strange to have come into it so late when I was always such a fan of it. But if I did tell myself, I wouldn't have been that shocked.
Talk to me about your style for a second. So so I rewatched the LS Dean battle because that, again, number one, that holds a special relevance to me because again, it was I remember being there and actually bumping into you after the battle, and you were kind of in yourself at that moment because I think you were just coming down from the battle itself, and you were kind of maybe thinking about some of the stuff in your head that was like, could have been better, and that didn't hit, and it's like I remember because it was not weird to me, but it was just kind of impressive to me that you were in that moment. You were already thinking about maybe not necessarily the next battle, but where you could be better, instead of what most people would do in that situation, which is start to go, "Fuck yeah, I did it," and wasn't this brilliant? And all that. No, you were still in your head, like trying to piece together where the improvements are, where can this go. But the style element, I would typify with the line you would say, because I remember this in the room and watching it back, it's still evident. You were starting a scheme about LSD self-harming or something along the lines, and it kind of made everyone go, "Where's he going with this?" And the line was, finishes with the punchline, "A slash could have you gone forever, like a piss in Weatherspoons." And I remember everyone just immediately lifting in that moment to go, "Okay, this is going to be fun." And like that style of being able to kind of tease, like I could let you have it if I really wanted to, but I'm here to entertain y'all. I'm here to make sure we all have a good time and make sure that I pop my opponent in the process. Because you popped him in that line as well. Talk to me about the development of that style. When did you first start honing this kind of this ability to be able to keep things loose, and this ability to be able to keep it quite levitus when compared to some other people who might want to be perceived as this, like the old school don't flop, I would argue, where everyone needed to be the hardest battler. Like now it's about entertainment, and you're an entertainer. Talk to me about the evolution of that.
Yeah, that particular bar, the Weatherspoons, the self-harm thing, it's not something that I look back on and too fondly, to be honest, because the way that I thought that one through was, that was my first ever battle on Prem. So all of my ones before that were don't flop, and they were pure jokey battles. Everything was just there for a laugh and whatever. And my way that I went into that battle was, I'm going to start with this as my opening bar, because I want people to think, oh God, he's come to Prem and he's really trying to write, and then it snapped at the end, and it did do that. But yeah, when I was doing it, I did feel that silence in the room, and it wasn't supposed to be that. So it was kind of like the way it dropped compared to the payoff wasn't the balance that I was shooting for.
Okay.
So it's yeah. So I certainly, if I could redo that, I would have put that maybe like later on.
But in the scheme of the battle, obviously I want to go back to the style in general, but just as it pertains to that battle, the thing that strikes me about that battle is it's a very modern battle in that the subjects and the topics that you guys are tackling are, you know, kind of, you're dealing with sexuality, you're dealing with gender, you're dealing with mental health, you're dealing with a bunch of other things. That battle was funny. It was really entertaining, and there was a really good vibe in that room throughout the thing. And I appreciate what you're saying in terms of maybe where you tackle it. But I thought you both did a credit to both of yourselves by doing something that I think some audience members in battle rap still aren't 100% ready to talk about some of these subjects until it's put in certain context, which is what you did in that battle. And I thought it was really impressive how, again, I appreciate what you're saying, and again, you're your own probably worst critic when it comes to this stuff. But I remember that in the room, just like, I wonder where he's going. Oh, okay. And the relief in the room, like, I think it immediately got people to kind of, it sucked them in a little bit. I really do think it wasn't as bad as maybe it could have been if you'd have gone heavy, if you'd have gone the other way and said, yeah, I really hope you'd have killed yourself, instead of that kind of that more levitus way of bringing people in. Because again, you're part of an era that's really aware of the entertainment value being integral to the genre. It's not about saying the most outlandish things for the sake of it anymore. It's about, we need to sell, we need to make sure people have a good time, and we need to make sure people are sharing this shit. It's not about just making the most heinous things. And you're a big part of that, man. Like I say, your style is that lovely blend of the two. I don't worry about showing your battles to my friends because of what you might say, or that they might not get what you're doing. They get what you're doing because, again, you're that, you've got that real personability about your style and your persona. So again, I'm curious as to how that's kind of how you've cultivated that over time.
Yeah, that LS battle actually was by far the hardest one to write for ever. Like, because I never, the way that battle came about, as soon as I battled Cooper, that was the one before it in Bristol, LS was in the crowd. He came straight up to me immediately after, and he was like, I want to battle you 100%. And I said no. I just didn't fancy it. And then, as it was, I got drafted into the teams. Our team were playing his team in the first event, and it was kind of like, you know, you're going to have to take people outside of your comfort zone in this league format. And I was like, Joe, what? He's asked for that one. It's the best of like a bad bunch in terms of, you know, I didn't feel any better about that than any of the other people. But I knew that I was going to face rounds where I was going to get called homophobic in that battle. And I'm not. And it's like, and it's one of those things where I guess I was kind of worried that, like, because I look a certain way, and it's quite easy to be painted out in that kind of way in a battle. And I was like, it's kind of like a game of chess, because you're like, so that's going to come. Do you write 3 rounds where you don't address it at all? And then it's that, if anything, that looks suspect. So it's like, I was like, no, what you need to do is own it, as ridiculous as that sounds, and as hard as that is of the task. That's why I didn't want it. I was like, look, you have to go in there and own it. What you need to do is be funny with it, and you need to make it very, very clear that no one's going to be stood in the room like, oh god, like you. That was the art of it, and I did do it, and it did work, but it was bloody hard to. So
but you say
yeah,
that. I mean, you really owned it. Like, that's how you signed off the battle. Is there's a fair bit of self-deprecation in that last round, but then there's also into the straight demeanor of it all, where it's like. You reference to, I could spend all night in a gay nightclub or something along those lines, and there's a couple of other things where it's like, yeah, he gets, because you got it again. Those comments really loosen an audience up, because it's that thing of, like you say, you identify the meta of it and you go, well, do you know what? Do you know what'd be funny is if I lean into the almost too secure in my like, and people get it. Again, you sell it in a way that people are like, oh, okay, I get it. Because in fact, if you look at that battle in 3 segments, the first round is almost quite laddish, because you use the Weatherspoons reference, but then you also frame it through the context of him dobbing you into the misses through a football context, which I thought was funny, and that got some of the crowd over. Second one, you were more on him, his appearance, and a couple of, like, where is it? You look like Ned Flanders addicted to meth tablets, which is like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's cool and that's funny. And he looks like the 118 Men, which I'm old enough to remember those adverts. But then the third one is like, again, it's kind of touching on some of these subjects that, again, maybe more taboo. So you're kind of dialing it up as you go through the battle. But that takes a mind to know that, right, if I started with the last one first, it might feel gimmicky and hokey and a bit, whereas you geared up to it. And again, that's typified in your other battles as well. Again, I'm looking at the notes for Free Will, for instance. And it's, again, that first round, the scheme is just basically about him spending 1 day in prison and him just having the piss ripped out of him for it. And it works.
my favorite,
because
that's my favourite section I've ever done,
it's a simple premise, but it worked so well because you just keep coming back to it, and you found another way of tackling it and another way. And that, again, in that crowd, for instance, that really worked, because you could tell that crowd was there for a good time, and you really gave it to him, man, in that Free Will battle.
Yeah, 100%. I have like some very simple rules when I'm writing. One of them is make sure that every single thing you write, if someone brought a friend or a girlfriend along, that they're not going to feel like they're not included. So you want to include absolutely everyone. And then what I then have as well is that the very center of everything that I say is you're shit and you're a wanker. And I don't want to deviate too far away from that. So I'll be as creative as I can when ultimately saying you're rubbish at this. And it's just a case of I keep slinging that, and then you might go away from it a little bit and go into this, but then you come back to it. And that's ultimately what it is, because that's what I wanted to see when I take it back to Mike Assassin in 2005, 2006. He, in not really the most creative way, would just be like, you're this, you're that, and he would just lock and load. I'm about to tell this guy he's fat. I'm about to tell this guy he's got a big nose. And it's just bang, bang, bang. You just keep firing it. And that's what I always try not to deviate away from. And so that the people that are in the room, because at the end of the day, they're turning up just, to enjoy their afternoon. They're having a beer and whatever. They're probably quite interested in the title match, whether it's a title match on the card, but the biggest battle on the card, they might want to sink their teeth into that. But the rest of it, they just want to have fun. And so if they're there and they're watching me doing what I'm doing, they're going to have a good time. And that's what it is. I never set out with the setting my targets on headlining cards. I've ended up doing it on this Liverpool one quite quickly, just doing what I do. So I'm never going to change. I'm certainly not going to go into the O'Shea one and be like, do you know what? I'm now going to be at the top of the card. Well, I've got Tony and Saurus above me, but I'm not going to get there and be like, God, I have to start trying to emulate Tony D. Tony D's on the right after me. So if anyone wants to see Tony D, they don't want to watch me doing an impression of him. So I'll do what I do and they can do what they do. Everyone, that's what it is. It's like, I don't go in there looking at myself. I look at any card that I'm on is a team effort to make an entertaining card. And I'll bring my thing to it and I'll let other people bring their things to it. I don't need to try and hit all these different attributes. I'll go and do what I do. Maybe my opponent in the Osh one, he'll do a lot of what I do. But when I battle Raws in November, for example, he's a top rapper. So within the same battle, you're hitting all these different highs in different directions. So yeah, I'll just do what I do, and I might go to the top of the card. I might then find my way back down again, but I'll just keep doing it, and that's all there is to it.
I've noticed as well, because this was evident in a video that you released on Twitter that made the rounds, and I remember everyone being really complimentary about, and rightly so, because I saw it and it was very funny. Like, you're in an era now where it's you could say this is a good or a bad thing. I don't know where I come down on this. I'd be interested to hear where you come down on it. Where being a exceptional live performer isn't enough anymore. You also have to be adept in being a social media presence. You have to be not a politician, that's too strong a word, but you have to be cognizant of your audience and then the other battlers and the promoters and stuff. It's a tough act to juggle. How are you navigating battling in the modern era, given the fact that, again, part of you, I understand what you're saying. You're not going to fundamentally change who you are for the sake of a battle or to get a headline out where it's just, right, now I'm bars and I'm hard and it's this or the other stuff. You are who you are. But you do want to grow. You do want to progress. You do have aspirations. And in order to do that, you're going to have to navigate the social media algorithm. You're going to have to navigate fans, promoters and stuff. How do you find balancing all that? How do you find not only carving a name for yourself in the live performance, but staying relevant, keeping people intrigued by your next battle, intrigued by what you're posting on the old socials, growing, as well as a battler and as a performer? Like, how do you navigate that and how do you balance all that, given, hey, we all got real lives as well, brother?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a question for what I've already done, but that's what I'm going to have to do, because I've only done 7 battles.
But you say that you're an active presence again. I hear you in every space. You're there. You're vocal. And I remember asking a question. You were the one to answer it. You took the reins and said, "I'll handle this one." Like, you're a vocal member of the sphere, and again, that's its pros and cons, and navigating that is going to be tough.
Yeah. I mean, it is, and the thing is, there have been tough times because it's never been, UKBR's never been my thing, but I've always felt like it was my baby, like in terms of to myself. It's something that I've cared about, and that's why I've never like left it. I did have a spell of 4 years where I wasn't attending events, and I was still watching the main battles online, and that was between 2012 and 2016, which funny enough was the massive boom period. But with things that happened in my life around that time, and I just was doing other things, and I was just watching away from the scene, watching what I could online. But I've always felt attached to it. That's why when when Don't Flop fell to pieces, I was one of the people that went in and helped. I ran 2 events with Rowan and tried my best to try and revive it as best I could. And it was what we did had pluses and minuses to what we did, but I felt attached to it enough that it was a case of I actually want to actively try my best to try and revive this thing. Premier Battles did a far better job of it than what I did, and as it was, they ended up getting the way that they've ended up getting into being a big force. Don't Flop, through Rowan doing it and not me and the small amount where I was involved, he's having a revival now, and it's like, and I couldn't be more happy. It's just lovely to see that they've gotten it into the position where it is now. And but when it was in that period there, when I was trying to help out with Don't Flop, that was when it was quite difficult, because I was trying to help out, but a lot of people wanted Don't Flop to die at that time. It was, I don't think that's going too strong, and it was kind of, you felt a lot of like, why are you even trying to help? And that was when it was difficult to go online around that time. It's now a few years later, it's a lot different. It's you're now, as a freelance, you're battling for both sides and whatever, and you're just judged on yourself as a character. So I do always remember those kind of days when it was a lot more difficult. So and you appreciate it. And it's now I'm in a situation where I'm friends with everybody in the scene. Like there isn't anybody that's face comes to mind now that is a part of the scene that I don't like. It's just a really, through my eyes, it's a really harmonious place, and it wasn't always that, but it is now. So yeah, it's I can't remember the initial question, but yeah.
This is my problem, ladies and gentlemen, is that I ask overly wordy questions, which is why I couldn't ever be a battler. Some people, there have been 2 or 3 people that have said, "Oh, mate, you ask really good questions. You should be a battler." I'm like, bitch, they don't do half-an-hour rounds. Otherwise, I'd consider it. But because they don't, I would be useless, because keeping it to 2 minutes, I'd stutter my way through the first 90 seconds, and everyone will be bored by the end. So that's fine. I tell you what, I've asked you a couple of fairly thought-provoking questions here. I feel like we've earned a bit of a break for you and for the audience, because we're going to have to broach something now. And it breaks my heart. It really does. You're a Spurs fan. Why do you have to support Spurs? Go on, state your case. I'm listening.
Purely was my local team. And it was, and that, honestly, that's on the honest truth of it. Growing up, I had it was a very lovely upbringing where I was with my parents sort of through the weeks, and on the weekends I was with my grandparents. That's why I always had such a great relationship with them. And where I was with my parents was Tottenham was my area, just outside of. And then where on the weekend was Islington. I was right on Highbury, and we used to play football on Highbury fields every weekend. We used to, if there was a goal up at Highbury, the one goal in 90 minutes that they used to score through the 90s, we used to hear the cheer as it was actually. But yeah, where I went to school, everyone in my class was Tottenham, and yeah, it wasn't even passed down to me as a family, because my granddad was a massive Arsenal fan. Used to go over there every other week. My dad was raised as an Arsenal fan in the way of, as a kid, he used to go with his dad. As he got older, he chose West Ham. It was purely a case of he was a working class man, as my family all were. And my dad and all his mates during the 70s and the 80s used to go over at West Ham, and it was because it was a lively it was a lively place, and that was kind of what made him fall in love with West Ham. Arsenal was always in that time was a quiet team, and my dad was always like, it was a bit posh. It was a bit posh, like, and he didn't go over to Arsenal. I was, but his dad, there was a bit of friction when he decided to go West Ham, and his dad was like, "Oh, go, you're Arsenal," and he decided to go for West Ham. When I was born, my dad was very conscious of that friction that happened for him, and he was like, "Well, you're going to support whoever you want to support." I remember as a young kid, I was only ever bought England shirts, so I was mad on football, but it was all England shirts. And my granddad would try and be an influence of support Arsenal. My dad would have loved me to support West Ham. As it was, I ended up supporting Tottenham. So it was, and they were just like, "Well, you do you," sort of thing. Then I had two younger brothers who both followed me, so it was three Tottenham boys. My dad was West Ham, my granddad was Arsenal. So it's why, in all honesty, I don't bear too many ill feelings towards Arsenal or West Ham, because two great, like a father figure, and my granddad was like a father figure as well. Two who did amazing jobs, and they're not. Both of them aren't here anymore. I can't hate those clubs for that simple reason. Arsenal make that bloody difficult, but yeah, it's there are things that I don't like about West Ham and Arsenal, especially in the social media era, where you've just got these Arsenal fan TV and all this sort of thing. So it's that, but in terms of for the actual club, they'll always be my dad's team and my granddad's team. So
for any Americans watching, the reason we josh about the London thing, and honestly, dude, I don't know if you've ever spoken to an American about the football rivalries that exist within Liverpool specifically. They don't get it. They're like, "But wait, aren't they? They are all from the same city, though, aren't they?" And like, you really don't understand how deeply rooted these rivalries go, because you've kind of touched on it. It used to be an hereditary thing. The only reason I support Arsenal is because my mum supported Arsenal, and my mum's family grew up in Islington, and it's that thing of. It's kind of handed off from one person to another, and you become kind of entrenched in the history of it, in their successes, their failures. But this is where the old man thing comes. We were talking off camera earlier, the old man feeling I get. I talk to some youngsters these days, and I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing. I mean, again, I'm interested to see what your take is as a fan of football. One of my little brothers, you know who you are, supports Tottenham Hotspur, Man United, Barcelona, and Bayern Munich. And I go, that's 3 teams too many. And also, Spurs and United, the fuck? How does that work? But he just, this generation's more about, I guess, the enjoyment of the superstars, the players within the game that become superheroes to these kids, rather than the teams, and then you identifying with certain members of the teams. Has your fandom changed? Have you kind of embraced this modern era of football, or do you sort of still harken back to the as a Spurs fan, for instance, you have your Spurs legends. These are people that you revere, and everyone else is dog shit, and everyone else no. I'll tell you what, this is Spurs' year, and all the rest of this sort of stuff. Where do you fall down with it?
I've, as much as I'm very aware of it happening, and I don't like it, I'm naturally turning into what my dad was and what my granddad was in terms of football. When it was in your day, was the best. What it is now is just a load of bloody rubbish. And I still love and watch every single game, but I bloody hate it at the same time. So and that was just the same as they were. So my granddad with Arsenal, as I say, I've still got all his old Arsenal stuff. We've got Islington Gazette from 1989, Michael Thomas. he's got about 4 copies of that. I was reading through that. I think it was over this Christmas, actually. I was reading through those articles. He's mad on it. And but then by the time we got to sort of late 90s, early 2000s, Invincible Arsenal 2004, he lost the love for it. He was like, it's just not Arsenal anymore. And a lot of that was like the foreign players coming in. It was like he didn't feel like he identified with it anymore. And as he was in his 70s by that stage, he still followed Arsenal, but he didn't love them to the same degree. My dad was mad fisherman, actually. Like, he was he'd fish every single weekend, and he won the Embassy World Championships in '93. He was very, very renowned fisherman, actually, and that was his passion over football, really. And when I got to the stage where I absolutely loved football, I didn't understand how he could miss a West Ham game because he was fishing. It just didn't make sense to me. And he was like, one day you'll understand. And I sort of do, because the game just changes and you miss what you used to have. So things that I don't like about the game now, lots of it comes down to the refereeing of the game. And it's a case of they give fouls, red cards and yellow cards for absolutely everything, to the degree that it's actually changed the complete dynamic of the game. It's changed the type of player that plays. Now it's a case of, when a kid's 16, 17, it's not, can he use both feet? Can he stick the ball in the top corner? It's, can he run 13 kilometres in 90 minutes? Yes, he's got a chance. If he can't, forget about it. Because it's now about having these small, mobile players who can run all day long, that can press and press, before having a player that can pass the ball properly, or that can actually have a proper touch. Because now you've got certain players who are able to run, and then they also have a touch and can pass between the lines. And you're talking De Bruyne, talk about our teams, we got Maddison, you've got Odegaard. It's like, these players are the absolute creme. And but there aren't too many of them. You've got lots of players who can run, but they don't have a touch. And when you used to watch the game in the 90s and the early 2000s, when the game was a lot slower, I'm not talking about the 80s when it was like crash, bang, wallop. It was more, people were talking about diving and foreign players coming in and changing the game, continental game in this country. But you still had players thriving that were like David Ginola, Paul Merson, Matt Letizia. And it's like, these players who could, every winger that you had would be able to 9 times out of 10 put a top ball into the box, and they could all take a corner. There was loads of free kick specialists. They weren't so few and far between, because now these players now, as much as if you put Man City now against the Man United side of '99, the Man City team would walk all over them in this environment where the refereeing would allow it. But it's that's why you can't really compare between eras, because player for player, skill for skill, I don't feel like the players were more skillful 20 years ago than what they are now. They're athletes now, and the game has completely changed.
Well, the game's changed. I'll give you the best example I can give you for not that it's better or worse or anything like that. When I was a kid, the statistic of the most fouled player wasn't a topic of conversation. Like, the idea that a foul was something that was measured statistically to use in tactical application, because Grealish and
Yeah.
Saka, for instance, are two players that are mentioned very, very frequently in terms of fouls committed against, right? But the difference is, in their roles, is that Grealish draws the foul, or at least in Aston Villa he did, to get the free kick to be able to then create the set piece to score. And Saka's told, no, you need to stay on your feet. But the point is that in the day, the incentive was, no, you need to stay on your feet, period. We need to keep the ball in motion so we can get it to our superstars who have then got the skill and the technicality and the strength, combine it to score the goal. Whereas now, it's a tactic in Football Manager, for instance, that players can draw fouls in order to get free kicks, in order to... So tactically, it altered the game, where it's a thing of... It's not necessarily about just outright technical skill. It's about, again, being cute with the rules, which I know as an old man, you always say, like, oh, in my day we were tougher, but genuinely the difference is when I was a kid playing football, I'd get yelled at for falling over. Even if someone wiped me, it's like, come on, get up, get on with it. I don't know if that same spirit exists, because the spirit now is win at all costs. If you're not winning every game, you're a fucking loser and you need to get off the pitch. It's different. It's weird.
Even in kids football now, if a player, if it's a game where it's a cup final, for example, and a kid runs into the box and he gets a clear kick on the ankle, but he stays on his feet, he will have parents and that on the side saying, "You're naive. You should have gone down." Whereas that comes down to the referee, and the referee should, at any level, should be able to see a kick, whether or not the player goes down, and be like penalty, without having to throw yourself to the ground. But yeah, it's, as I say, there's other things. It's, the VAR. I just can't stand it. It's just, I can't. As someone who goes,
no, he's pulling the VAR can of worms out, and he's going to let it all loose. Go for it, brother.
As someone who attends games, it's just that feeling of not being able to let yourself go when the ball hits the back of the net.
When you're live, how much? Because I watch football kind of tertiary these days. I never really find this out. How much does it ruin the live experience specifically? That moment of euphoria that has to be tapered because you don't know if it's actually a goal or not. How much does it ruin it?
Yeah, it completely ruins it. It's the thing was, when it was pre-VAR, when I'd be at games, I always hated the idea of being that mug fan that when the ball goes in and the linesman's got flag up, I'm going crazy. I was never that guy. Like, sometimes it's like, God, he's like 3 yards offside. The linesman's got his flag up. The ball goes in and the stadium erupts. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I was never that guy. I would always look quickly at so that is always still with me now, where I don't want to be someone who cheers and goes crazy for it to get chalked off. But because there's nothing that you can do about it, I've consciously decided, sod it, I will just lose myself in the moment. And if I've got egg on my face afterwards, who's really looking? Like, you might have the away fans to the side of you, or the home fans, whatever it is, and you just look forward and pretend you just don't look that way. That's always been the case. So I do kind of just think, just let yourself go, because life is too short and you spend too much money on these bloody football tickets to be pretty about it and be like, well, I'm not going to cheer, because for every time that you feel like, oh God, I didn't look silly, you've not cheered a goal that actually counts. So that's something that I hate. I never had a problem with what we had before, which was literally let the ref make his decision. And yes, there were awful decisions. We had Pedro Mendes up at Man United when he nearly hit the back of the net and it didn't get given. It's 91st minute or whatever it was, and it's 2 yards over the line. We should have won. And it was, you are cursing the ref. But fine, that was fine to me. I was never someone who would sit there on a Sunday morning and go, God, that's just, you would curse the ref. But I was never thinking, oh God, what we need to do is bring cameras in and get everything right, because not every player gets everything right. So the referee having a bit of a stinker was all just part and parcel of it. And I'd go back to that tomorrow.
Am I misremembering it? I think his name was Roy Carroll, the United goalkeeper. And I don't know if he was playing you lot, but I feel like he was when that ball sailed.
Yeah, so that's what I just said. Yeah.
So it was that one. So right, you and I both remember that, because both of you and I probably watched that game and went, "How has wait, a professional referee hasn't given that goal?" And everyone, even the fucking pigeons in the stands of that stadium, went, "Yeah, he didn't give that." But the point of that though was that made news for weeks and weeks. They were debating that. These days though, again, I understand that VAR, the spirit of VAR is progression of the sport, making more precise decisions, more better decisions. But at the same time, man, and this is why I like Battle Rap to a certain degree, because I don't think it ever really gets away from the premise that it's meant to, which is, it's entertainment. Does this add to the entertainment? And Prem Battles asked that. Don't Flop ask that question. I don't know if the Premier League are asking themselves that question when it comes to VAR, because I don't know of anyone that goes, do you know what I really love about football? How accurately they call their offsides. That makes the game interesting. It is sometimes the drama and the pantomime of being robbed that makes football what it is, because it means that there's now a narrative going forward. It ingratiates the fans to galvanise behind the team. We were robbed. We had a decision go against us. We now have to be even better to take that out of the referee's hands. Whereas now, people don't even argue with the referee anymore. The referee's just there. And you go, why am I going to argue with you? You're not making a decision. It's some bloke in some fucking office off in fucking London somewhere. Why am I going to argue with you? I'm just going to go like that and hope someone else looks at the decision and overrides you. It ruins the flow of the game. It really does.
Yeah. No, it's always been the case, because the people that run football are they're not the type of person that I will ever identify with. It's the same way as every England manager that's ever been selected has been selected by a load of stuffy old men who have a criteria that isn't anything to do with, oh, let's win a bloody World Cup. It's, let's pick someone who, like Gareth Southgate, effectively, who will represent what we want an England manager to represent. It's why Harry Redknapp never got a job. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think Harry Redknapp was the absolute be all and end all. We had a good run under him, but it was at that time when he got us into the Champions League, and that seemed like the time that he was going to. It was 2010 was when we qualified for the Champions League, and then it would have been approaching the 2012, the Euros in 2012. That was when Roy Hodgson got the job, and it was like no one was calling for Roy Hodgson to get that job except for all his mates in the FA. Harry Redknapp should have gotten the job at that time, and at a time when, you know, Harry Redknapp, as I say, he had his faults as a manager, but what he would do was let players go out and express themselves. And when you've got a crop at England where you've got enough talent in there, sometimes just having a manager who isn't going to go into a big tournament and just put the handbrake on, like Roy Hodgson did, and like Southgate does, and like Capello did. And it's the last manager who really decided to go into a tournament and was like, you know what, you guys go and play football, would have been Halcyon, who's died recently, and that was 96, and that was far from the best crop of England players. But what it was a squad of players that we probably had 8 or 9 players in that squad, captains of their clubs at the time. And so you had a manager that would let them go on and express themselves, and you had players on the pitch who were prepared to stand up and really give it a go. And the whole nation got behind them. And it's just... but I just feel like, and he didn't last very long as a manager. And it's just I just feel like it's always the same old story where these group of people at the FA just they just want to they feel like they're trying to ruin football. Like, it's every single decision that you ever want them to make is always a case of why have you done that? And they'll bring VAR in. It's just it's just something that I'll never like, and I feel like it'll always be the case. You kind of think, oh, eventually they'll all die off, but it's like Tory voters. Like, there's always this conveyor belt ready to step in and replace them. So it's I don't know.
It's eye-rolling
I
and it's
don't like.
groan-inducing for sure. And it's
Mm.
hard work. Again, it's an evolution of things. But for battle rap fans, worry not. I'm going to bring the conversation back to rap as we start to look to wrap up, because one of the things that I find interesting in talking to battlers is their respective eyes on aspirations, where their goals lie. Like, what do they ultimately want to achieve? Is it to use battle rap as a vehicle for something else? Is it to become a revered member of the scene? Is it to become a champion? Is it to become a promotional head? Is it to become a promoter themselves? What do you ultimately see as your aspiration within battle rap? Is it a hobby? Is it something that you do for fun? Is it something you want to be known as do you want to carve out, like I say, like a name on the pantheon in years to come? Like, what do you see as your ultimate goal or aspiration in battle rap?
Yeah, it's very clear. It's a hobby, and I do it for the buzz. It's I can't. I remember the first one that I ever went to, which was that one in 2009 when O'Shea battled Kruger, which was North versus South. Sensor was on that card, and he battled Flex Digits. And I remember talking to him as soon as he came off, and him saying to me, "Mate, you need to do that. You need to do this because there is no buzz like it. When you've written something and you feel like it's going to go off, and it does, and the room goes mad for it. There's no feeling like it, and there really isn't. Well, there is, but I haven't. I'd imagine a winning goal in the 90th minute of the World Cup probably feels better than a kick in the bollocks. Like, but that's my. This is something that I find it's just great if you can do it, and then it is one of those ones where when you've put in a great performance and you come off. My best one yet is Raws. When I probably haven't seen it. It's coming out in it's dropping on the 26th of February. So that one was brilliant, and it was so responsive. That crowd, it was great. And as soon as it finished, I walked off and I just got hugged by all the battlers. That was just incredible, amazing, and all this. And it was just like I was on cloud nine for the next few hours, and it was just it's those endorphins that are just you struggle to get them in other things. It is one of these hobbies that's like there's lots of things that you can weigh up. Like, I'll play a bit of golf, and I'll think sometimes you'll go round and you've had an absolute shocker, and you think, why do I even do this? Tottenham, they'll dish up so many. Like last season, I went to Sheffield United away in the FA Cup, and we lost. And I'm coming away, and I'm like, it was a midweek game. I was like, why? Like, that was not. There was not one moment of that was enjoyable. And this is one where when I weigh it up, it's every single time it weighs up because there isn't money flying around in this thing. Like, your currency that you deal with is fun and enjoyment and these endorphins. And when you weigh up every moment of writing and stressing and the money of going to events and practicing and if you just include everything in, and then your payoff is purely comes down to the enjoyment, it tips the balance every single time. And that won't happen every time forever. and that's when people end up having to get financially reimbursed. And when that love for it goes and it just comes for the money, I feel like that's the beginning of the end, because you get to the stage where that will translate into your material, and it eventually you will fade. And the worst thing is, these people that I see, their balance has tipped, and I'm like, you're now chasing, it's almost like an addiction, you're chasing what you once felt, and that's where it's unhealthy. And I'm not going to name them because it wouldn't be fair, but there are certain people now that are still getting booked, and I'm like, if you look at it and you're like, why is anyone even booking them, and why are they putting themselves through it? And it's because they're chasing that high that they once felt, and they get the high from their name being announced on a flyer. Then when it comes down to that time when they have to pull their sleeves up and do the hard graft to actually get the payoff, they just don't have it in their belly anymore. And that's where it's quite sad. And it's these guys, it should be, the promoters should stop booking them, because I can think of 2 or 3 off the top of my head, and that's what that will never be me, because I'm conscious of it. When that balance starts to tip, even where it starts to get to 50-50, you're like, I'll probably call it a day, because I'm not going to do it forever. It's one of those things. It's going to be a relatively short thing. I've got a couple years in it, but by the time ultimately it comes down to that balance. Is it worth it?
Do you know what? Again, I've never resonated with the statement. Probably more than that is, we won't be doing this forever. I'm getting older and older by the day, and keeping up with these young whippersnappers with all the stuff that goes on. It's hard work, and man, just enjoying things becomes more and more sort of, I just want to sit back and enjoy other people's reverence and stuff, I suppose. But old man Lorne conversation for another day. Final question, if I may, which is, how, if you could chart your success in 2024 and beyond, and look, I don't expect you to name names. I don't expect you to sort of, to put any unnecessary pressure on yourself. But if you could say, right, by when I'm done, I'd like to have done this. I'd have liked to have battled this fella. I'd have liked to have been on this card. I'd have liked to have performed in this country. Like, what do you think is success for you as a performer, and just as a student of battle rap, and as someone that's followed the scene for a very long time and has enjoyed partaking in it and is a fan, probably will be a fan for some period after. How do you chart your own success from here? Like, what are some of the bucket list items, or some of the things that you just want to go, do you know what would be fucking insane if I did this? I'd be pretty goddamn happy.
I mean, they said the names would sound ridiculous, but O'Shea sounded ridiculous a year or 2 ago. It would be Shuffle T, Lunacy, and Thesaurus. Thesaurus would be, as I say, it sounds ridiculous but he's just like the all-time go is, for me, is Pat Stay. Like, for me, Pat Stay was everything. Like, he was the absolute best that ever did it, in my opinion. But after that would be Thesaurus. And when I was so passionate about the battle rap, he was the guy. Like, I'm talking WRCs. He was the absolute guy. I met him in Manchester, 2022, and then I met him again at Institution in November, and then I'm going to see him again in Liverpool, which is quite weird to see him, because I never thought I'd meet him. He was just one of these guys that was just, he was just someone that you'd watch online. I had tickets to go and see him plenty of times. He had bad luck getting into the country back in the day. But yeah, he's just like that kind of figure. That yeah. The other thing and I always push him for this, and I do feel like there is half chance it could happen at some stage, is that I would like to do a 2-on-2 with yeah, it's he'll watch this and he'll be like, shut up. But he knows that I say it, and he knows how much fun we would have writing together and just meeting up and prepping. And it would be, and the way that it would, you just sort of bounce these ideas off of each other. The prep, that whole process would be hilarious. And to pair up, I just think it would. I think we'd be a brilliant 2-on-2. And yeah, it's just to go on there and just pair up with him and go against Shufflo, for example. When we're talking about crazy things that could ever happen, I'm not going to say, oh God, you know, you're gonna pick things that are amazing battles. I'm not saying that should get booked for checkpoint 5, but yeah, that's, if it was bucket list stuff, that's the kind of thing that I could happily sort of call it a day after that, because that would be amazing. But as I say, people would be looking on being like, well, Sean's just Make-Wish Foundation. Like, it's yeah.
We all going to have our aspirations, man, and that sounds insane. That's one to keep an eye on, I imagine, because you never know. Because again, I know what you're saying about, you know, these things maybe sound far-fetched, but it's all about the opportunity sometimes. Sometimes the opportunity just kind of arises and you got to make the most of it when it presents itself. But at least that's in my humble opinion. But listen, man, the most important question, I suppose, is always in this ever-shifting era of content is, of course, where can people find you? Where can people follow you? Where can people support you? And of course, I know the O'Shea battle we've talked about, and I don't know how much you can disclose about the rest of your year, what you've been offered, what you're thinking, what you're angling. Is there anything you want people to be cognizant of, at least, as they look at 2024 and supporting you and following you?
2020, well, social media is just Sean Kray on everything. As far as 2024, O'Shea is my only booking so far, but for the first time ever, I'm being offered everything. Like, it's basically every event that's been rumored about, it's like I've been asked. So I'm quite spoilt for choice at this moment in time. So, but I'm always talking about like doing one. It's important to do it and then go through all the motions of it, take stock of how did it go, what was the pros and cons, and once you've done that and you've completely taken stock, you choose your next one off for the back of that. Because too many people, I talk to a lot of these like young ones now, and it's that I'll talk to them and they're like, oh, I've got 4 battles booked for this year, and I'm like, you're just at the start of this, so you're at the stage where you don't know what your trajectory is going to be like, and you've already picked your next 4. Like, what if you do your first one of those and it goes brilliantly, and potentially off the back of it you've been seen by lots of people, all of a sudden you're very bookable, people would like to go against you. You could be quite ambitious with what you ask for, but you're already tied into 2 or 3, and you don't want to be cancelling battles because you feel like you're above them, because that's insulting to your opponent, your prospective opponent. It's messing the promoters around. So you start becoming, you look like a diva, and you're messing with cards and everything. So just don't get excited and just take this, that, and the other, because these opportunities aren't going anywhere. They're around. Like, you know, you can say no to things. I say no to things all the time. You don't have to be disrespectful. You don't have to publicly say no or say, I don't. You don't have to give a reason. Just say no, and then say yes to what you want. But yeah, this whole thing of, oh yeah, I've got 3, 4 booked in. If you're O'Shea and he's got 3 or 4 booked in, he that's I'm sure that's fine because he's got 3 or 4 paychecks coming in, and he can say to the missus, "Well, here you go. There's you. You are. It's a good thing for him to have. I'm booked up for 2 or 3 this year. But if you're looking to grow, don't go booking 3 or 4 at a time because it's just it's complete guesswork when there's no need for it and there's no advantage to it. So cause no one really sits there and writes for 3 people at the same time. You're always going to get one done and then go on to the next and then go on to the next. So just give yourself some breathing space and make the right decisions so you can grow. Because otherwise, all you end up doing, it's like one oar in a boat, and it's just like, so you just push, and a year goes and you've gone nowhere. Choose your path methodically, and that's what you've got to do. And don't be shit.
That's as good a jump off point as I'm going to think of in terms of signing off. Dude, we made it. We got to an hour and 20 odd minutes and we got everything in. There we go.